Well, welcome everyone, all of you. Before we get started with Safe Families for Children, I have a couple of announcements. Can you hear me? I'll talk louder. Thank you. You know where the restrooms are now, out in the foyer to the left. And refreshments are available in the back. And now then, league members, look for an invitation coming to you in the mail about our tea social that Elaine Brady is championed. And so it's going to be March 25th at the Umpqua Valley Arts Center. And everyone is invited to attend. We'll be RSVPing to Elaine. You'll get something like I say in the mail. And also I wanted to let you know about global warming is encouraging we submit testimony to the legislature about HB 3107, which has to do with, it's relating to the Department of Environmental Quality and regulatory processes prescribing an effective date, something that the conservatives have proposed. And so they want testimony. So you can go to OLIS, the Oregon Legislative Information System Services, to look that bill up for more information. I have a little bit here. It would modify the authority of the Department of Environmental Quality to enter into agreements with regulated entities to expedite or enhance a regulatory process. Directs the EQC to establish standards to guide the department in the exercise of the department's authority. So now there's a number of climate related bills at the legislature. And so now, and why we are here and why I'm recording this event is I am honored to welcome Safe Families for Children Regional Director, Marissa Hayner, and Outreach Specialist, Yaku. Say your name again.
Yaku.
Kutsia.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And we are so pleased to have you both here. So let's welcome them.
Yeah. You okay if I put my water here?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then what we'll do is we have some, well, I guess we'll keep it here. Brochures, we'll just kind of pass around as I go through them. Yeah. Yeah, we can just have that.
Yes, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Round one.
Okay.
Yeah, round one.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having us. And I shared with some of you, I'm actually from Lincoln County. Does everybody know where Lincoln County is at? On the coast, okay. The beach, the place to be, unless it's, you know, high winds. We had sideways rain, crazy wind like 2 days ago. So it's a place to be right now because it's like gorgeous. But Yaku is a local here in Douglas County. And so I oversee all of our Safe Families programs under Hearts. And so I want to start off before I get into the nuts and bolts about Safe Families, which is the program that is here in Douglas County. I want to talk about Hearts of the Mission because that is the organization that our Safe Families program runs under. And just to give a little back history before I talk about Hearts, I've been working with under Hearts of the Mission for over 6 years now. And welcome, we just started, so you're not missing much. And been working with homeless youth and families for over 10 years. I've initially from Southern California, but then moved to Lincoln County. And so my family lives there. I love Oregon and Lincoln County, that's my home. But my passion is people. And so when I was like, before college, you know, it's just such a unique time. You're like, what do? You can do anything. I remember traveling across seas and then I realized like I wanted to work with people. And so ever since I've just been working with people at different facets. And even now I'll talk a little bit about our Hearts for Seniors program. Mainly, I've been working with youth and families and children, but now it's expanding to seniors 65 and up. And so it's just truly like being able to support and work with all different ages and types of people it's just a blessing. So a little bit about me. I don't know if you want to share just quickly a little bit about you and.
Sure, yeah, I am from Delta, well, originally South Africa, then Florida, met my wife in Missouri. She's from Roseburg, and here I am.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I instantly got involved in working with young people in our community here in Roseburg. Casa de Belén was the #1 spot where we found ourselves. And for a season, that's really where we plugged in heavily. Casa de Belén is no longer, and we had a program called the Umpqua Valley Bicycle Outreach under them. And so when they closed, the property sold and the bike outreach closed, but that left us with an opportunity to enter into the homes of the youth that were participating in the bike program. What we realized is that families need support. And my wife and I tried for about 1.5 years to invest and then realized what it took. It just takes a lot more people. Safe Families for Children was put on the radar, and that's what they do. They help mobilize people to some play a big role, some play a small role, but every role matters no matter what you can do, whether it's dropping off something. That made a huge difference for some people, for all people. And then as far as hosting, my wife and I have hosted families. And so Safe Families even provides a lot of assistance if you ever wanted to enter into a role like that. But we love Safe Families.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll start with two. You are more than welcome to like interrupt and ask a question as we're talking. It does not distract me. I'm used to it, so I can typically like go on right to where I was at. Because I know sometimes we will have like questions at the end, but sometimes it's easy to forget them. And so if it's like, and then you might be answering someone else's question. So if you have a question, I can finish my thought, and I have no problem saying like, yeah, go for it, answer your question. It can flow like that, or you can totally hold all of your questions till the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Hearts of the Mission, and that's the brochure that you have in front of you. Hearts is based in Jackson County, so Medford area, and Kevin Lamson, he was the founder, and his story is pretty beautiful too. He had like no past history working with youth and families. He actually was a car salesman, and then he like read a newspaper article, and it talked about like the homeless numbers in Jackson County. And he's a man of faith, and so he felt led by God to like start this youth shelter. That's what he started, was a youth shelter. And so he actually quit his job and started this youth shelter, which is just like, that's not what he did before. But he saw this news article and was like, we have to do something about this homeless youth population. So that was kind of the birthing of Hearts of the Mission. It started with a youth shelter. So we're known, Hearts of the Mission is known for our youth shelter because that was our first program. We had a youth shelter, we have a youth shelter in Jackson County, and then we had one in Josephine County as well. That is now a transitional living program. It's TLP for young adults, 18 to 21. So that was the second program that birthed, was our TLP program, supporting youth who were 18 to 21 who needed a place to stay. So our youth shelter was focused 14 to 17, so minors. And then they opened our TLP program. And then shortly after that, our ILP, which is independent living, supporting youth who are exiting out of the foster care system or in the foster care system. So they're a little bit older, teaching them life, job skills, again, giving them a safe place to stay. And then Safe Families was a program that they took on. Safe Families is a nationwide organization. So if you look up Safe Families for Children online, you'll typically first see like a national website. And but to run a Safe Families program, you have to run under a 501c3 nonprofit. So Hearts of the Mission heard about Safe Families because they were having a lot of kids in their shelter. And the goal is always family reunification, right? Like we want these kids to go back to their homes. Not always the case, not always something that where these kids should go back to their homes, their parents or guardians. And so that's where Safe Families really was a good pair because not a kid shouldn't live in a shelter for the remainder of their high school experience. Though Hearts with Mission shelters are great, even the shelters, like this kid shouldn't be here this long. And a lot of times there's a timestamp on how long kids can stay at a shelter. And so that's why Hearts took under Safe Families as a program for our teenagers who need to be in homes longer term. They can transition to a community member, a family who's willing to open up their home for a youth. So I'll go more into that, but that was really a reason why we paired with Safe Families, because it allowed our youth initially who were living in the shelter for a while to transition to an actual home. And then the amazing part about Safe Families too is we can host kids 0 to 24, so not just youth. So children who need a place to stay temporarily. So Safe Families became our 4th program under Hearts with a Mission. And we actually have expanded our Safe Families programs to 6 counties in Oregon. So we have our Safe Families program in Klamath, Jackson, Josephine, Douglas, Coos, and Lincoln. I launched Safe Families in Lincoln County in 2019. At the time I was working for the school district as a McKinney-Vento advocate, so specifically working with homeless youth and families. And we were looking into starting a youth shelter in Lincoln County because we didn't have one at the time. So I actually visited the Medford shelter, got a tour, chatted with Kevin, and I so appreciate his advice. He was like, look, you don't want to start a youth shelter. It's a lot of work, a lot of liability, a lot of insurance. He was like, check out Safe Families, see if it's a good fit for your county. And so I just so happened to attend their like 1st or 2nd conference, like Oregon conference, a few weeks later. A few coworkers and I attended from the school district, and we were like, this is the perfect fit. So we ended up launching in Lincoln County 6 months later. And then from there, we launched in Klamath. And then we took over running Safe Families here in Douglas County. FARA was initially the organization who was running Safe Families. And then we took it over 2023. Spring of 2023. And then we just recently launched in Coos County last year. Did you have a question?
Yes. Who did you say when you took it over from?
From FARA.
Family.
You'd have to.
Family and relational advocacy, relationship advocacy.
They have multiple programs. FARA.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So they don't just do one thing. So anyway, so Hearts took over from FARA because FARA released it. And so we now have 6 Safe Families programs running in 6 different counties, which was our goal 4 years ago, was to expand because it's such a healthy and manageable program to launch, and it works in communities because the uniqueness of Safe Families is it's volunteer driven and professionally supported. So it was our goal of our organization to expand Safe Families. And then pairing with that, we just launched a new program called Hearts for Seniors, which I'm very excited. I won't go too in depth. I guess potentially for time's sake, it doesn't take long to share about it, but Hearts for Seniors is our 5th program that we run, that runs under Hearts with a Mission. And similar to Safe Families, in some ways, but it's really providing care companionship. So what you're talking about, it's supporting single isolated seniors who are not living in care homes with care companionship. And I think so often we think about how youth and families are the most vulnerable. A lot of funding.
I just wanted to
Oh,
get
yeah.
a brochure.
Oh, yes, you got that then. A lot of times we think it's mainly youth and families who are the most vulnerable, but actually nationwide, it is our senior population, 65 and up, who are the most vulnerable and lack the most resources. And so Kevin, our founder of Hearts of the Mission, it's his mom actually on the front. She was really the inspiration to start this program just through a series of events. And he was like, what about our seniors? Like nobody's caring, there's not a ton of organizations and programs caring for them. And so that's really with the birth of Hearts for Seniors. again, it's professionally supported, volunteer driven, and really what it looks like is connecting a local community member with an isolated single senior and providing companionship. And that might look like coming in once a week or every other week and just having a meal together, or picking them up and bringing them to the Women's Voters League, you know, to this meeting, like getting them in the community. There's seniors who are obviously homebound and you need to go to them. And there's seniors who are just isolated and disconnected from their community, where they need someone to kind of wrap around them and say, hey, like come to my grandson's basketball game, or this club on Wednesdays. And so there's little other ways you can get involved, like housekeeping. Again, the main point is companionship and connecting them potentially to other people in your circle group, but then really like pulling them out of isolation. And so we started Hearts for Seniors 2022, if I'm remembering correctly, in Jackson County. And so we just launched Hearts for Seniors in Lincoln County this last January. So I'm really excited to be launching Hearts for Seniors in Lincoln County. And our goal is to pair every county that has safe families, to pair it with a Hearts for Seniors program. So next, we hope to launch in Josephine County and Klamath County, and potentially here in Douglas County. So it's trickier finding funding. Again, it goes into, there's just not as many resources for our 65 and up population. So we've been working on finding like funding streams to help launch these pilot Hearts for Seniors programs. So that's the newest program under Hearts. I do not think we plan to do any more. I think we're gonna keep it at that. So again, as a recap, we have our shelter, we have our TLP, which is a shelter for youth 18 to 21. And then we have our ILP independent living program, which is really providing skills to our young adults, especially those who are exiting out of the foster care. We have our Safe Families program. And then we have our Hearts for Seniors program. And I think just a beautiful part too is, yes, it was based out of Medford County, but as you can tell, like I'm all the way in Lincoln County. And so I chose to run under, when I started Safe Families, I chose to run under Hearts with the mission because I really love their mission, vision, and values. Any questions about our organization before I transition to Safe Families?
So Safe Families is in Roseburg.
Yep.
So you're functioning in Roseburg.
Correct.
That's great. So who do you work with? I mean, how do you get to know people?
Great question. So like, who do I co-work with? Because we are hiring, if you know.
Oh boy, hiring. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah, we are hiring. But typically we collaborate with the community, call them community partners. So you could, if you're talking to businesses or organizations, churches, clubs. So there's just a variety of ways to collaborate, and that could look like, hey, we know a family's in need. We will supply you with a referral for a family that is asking for help. You could say, hey, we want to partner financially. There's that way. We have a needs list that goes out typically right now bi-weekly. So if you subscribe to this tangible needs list, an email will come to you and you'll say, oh, somebody needs diapers, or this person needs somebody to drop off meals for the next 3 months because there was a medical emergency and this mom is a single mom and we want to help in that way, all the way to we want to mentor. And so each of these opportunities we have different roles for. So a family friend, sorry, let me start the basic level as a resource friend, not getting so much relational and visiting them in their home, but you're going to drop off something, a resource, maybe mow their yard, offering a service. And then if you want to be very relational, then you could become an onboarded volunteer, where then as a family friend, because a lot of people don't have family to visit them, kind of like our seniors, we have parents who don't have their parents or sisters or brothers to help them out, and they're trying to figure out how to parent for the first time on their own. And so you can become a family friend and offer encouragement as they learn and grow. If you want to mentor somebody, be a mommy or a daddy mentor and say, hey, let me teach you and mentor you how to parent, or how to make meals from scratch, or how to manage your finances, or how to get a job. And so mentoring is a huge one. And then let's say a family is in such a crisis where their children need to be hosted temporarily while they get back on their feet. That's a whole nother role where you say, hey, I'm gonna open up my home and you'll be vetted and go through a volunteer process and we'll do home assessment where you'll say, yeah, these kiddos can stay with me, one child or 5 children if you're up for adventure, but typically they're really young. The ages average from 3 to 5 is the average age of child.
Yeah, 0
hosted.
to 5 typically.
So you could be a host home in that way. And what's beautiful is there's a professional side that is creating a plan for this parent, this family to get back to stability. So you're not hosting them hoping that their help is there. There's a professional layer of, hey, these are the steps that will walk with you. And then there's a group of people in those roles I just mentioned, walking alongside of that parent to stability while you give them the room to breathe by caring for their children. They could still have full custody of their children. There's not a custody or a guardianship change. They're still visiting and communicating with their kids, and everybody's on the same page. There's a process for all that.
Yeah, let's get them, we'll go, that was kind of diving into the nuts and bolts of it. Go for it.
So are you working with the county, like getting referrals from the county?
Yes, yeah.
And adapt?
Thank you.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, any other questions before we fully transition? to
Well, how do you
safe
get a
families?
hold of you here in Roseburg?
I'll get into that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll get into that. So Safe Families is, again, like I mentioned, a nationwide program. And, I would say Safe Families is almost in every state, not quite every state, but almost. And so the neat part about Safe Families is as a program that's nationwide, we all collaborate and connect. So we, even though we're here in Oregon, like we connect and collaborate with people in Florida, Chicago. It was based out of Chicago. Oregon, I would say, is honestly probably one of the strongest states. Woohoo! Because we have an Oregon collaborative, a Safe Families Oregon collaborative. And we're just like all on the same page, and want to expand and grow in Oregon. Our goal is to have a Safe Families program in every single county in Oregon. And another unique part about Oregon, we were the first state in 2010. You can look this up. Senate Bill 991 was passed. I can actually send you this information. You don't have to look it up.
That'd
I'll
be
send
great.
it to you. It'll take you some time.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 991 was passed where the state of Oregon accredited Safe Families for Children as another form of respite beyond child welfare, which is just, yeah, it has not happened. Actually, it's happened in one other state, but at the time, it was 15 years ago. It was like, woohoo, Oregon. And so the state accredited us as another form of respite because respite is one of the services we offer. So Oregon is just really strong. And I really give that back to we have a collaborative where we're working together. All of our counties are working together. Hearts is just one organization. There's 3 other organizations that have programs in, we have 15 counties in Oregon that are running Safe Families. I should have brought a map because we have a beautiful map and it shows all the different counties that are running Safe Families. I can forward that to you as well.
Great.
So the purpose and why of Safe Families for Children is to prevent child abuse and to keep families together. So our whole goal is to keep kids out of the child welfare system. And so with that, we partner heavily with the child welfare system. You were asking who we receive referrals from. A huge referring source is child welfare. My numbers are a little off because it's a little old, but nationwide, we'll just say there's several million calls every year to the hotline. Well, only half of them are actually, in a sense, acted upon. Less than half are acted upon to where they do an investigation or look into it, then immediately close the case. And so we serve those families where a hotline was called, but then DHS goes, no, children aren't being neglected and abused. But there was a call for a reason, right? And the reasons are all different. And so typically those are the families we support. Families where abuse and neglect is not happening. Sometimes it does. We just had our mandatory reporting training this morning. We are mandatory reporters. All of our volunteers, all of our staff are. We deal with abuse and neglect, not often, which I'm just so thankful for. Because we're really at that intervention piece of it. Our program is very interventional. Our goal is to prevent, I should say, kids from being abused and neglected. And so we're supporting the family before or during that crisis so that kids aren't abused, neglected, DHS doesn't have to get involved. With that being said, we can support families with kids in state custody. It just looks a little different, and I'll get into that a little later. But that's our goal. Like, we want to support families to keep them together, and then keep kids out of child welfare system. So what that looks like is we offer 3 unique services, and Yaku touched into that a little bit as well. The first service we offer is overnight respite hosting. And what is that? That is where a community member voluntarily opens up their home to host a child for a period of time while parents are working on their goals. And a lot of times that looks like mom or dad it could be mom having a baby. This happens a lot. Mom needs to have her baby. It's typically a single mom and doesn't have anyone to watch her 2-year-old, 3-year-old, right? We're talking about that 0 to 5 age range. And so they call Safe Families. Hey, I just need someone to watch my kid 2 to 3 days, maybe 5 tops, right? So I can have my baby, recover a little bit, and then go back home. Like, I just didn't have anybody else to call who was safe and healthy. So we do a lot of those hostings. Parents who have unexpected hospitalization. Just a few months ago, we had a mom, unexpected surgery, and she was almost 3 weeks, like truly just unexpected. 3 weeks in the hospital. And so we were able, because we had a prior relationship, set it up very quickly, hosted child for 3 weeks, back with mom, like easy peasy. DHS didn't need to get involved. A lot of times we'll get calls from DHS like, hey, do you have a host family? We don't want to take custody of this kid, but parent doesn't have anybody. Parents is like getting booked into jail or needs to go to detox. They're ready. We'll get those calls from DHS. We'll get those calls from law enforcement. We'll get those calls from drug and alcohol programs. It's a lot more helpful when they're like, not, we need someone today or tomorrow in a few weeks from now, because we like to plan and connect volunteer with client, right? But sometimes we'll get a call, and if it works out, it works out. We are not an emergency run program because we're volunteer driven. And that's a beautiful part of our Safe Families and Hearts for Seniors program. We're volunteer driven. So how we actually offer our services is through volunteers, community members, but we're professionally supported. So I could get a referral for a hosting for a dad who's like ready to go to treatment. The bed is open today, and potentially we could host that kid that evening. Totally has happened. My coworker and I in Lincoln County, we did one of those hostings a couple weeks ago, but that was on the grace of the availability of our volunteers. Sometimes it doesn't work and I have to say, I'm sorry, we can't host your kid. So that's why we're always recruiting volunteers and always speaking in the community. But hostings can last anywhere from 1 night to a few weeks to 3 months, even to years. Typically when you're hosting years, it's with our youth who are unaccompanied, and it's not in their best interest to go back home. So I talk about our goal is always family reunification, but there are some times where that is not in the best interest of, typically it's the youth. When we talk about littles, that's just kind of a different story. That's, if it wasn't in the best interest of the child to go back home, that's typically when we would need to involve DHS. Excuse me, most of the time, our longer term hostings is with our teens. And it's until they typically graduate high school or become an adult. We have a girl in Lincoln County she's coming up on 4 years now where she's been hosted. Has a relationship with her dad. Her dad's an alcoholic. He's completed treatments programs 5 times. He doesn't really want to get clean and sober. He knows it's in her best interest to stay with the host family, and she knows it's in her best interest to stay at the host family. But she visits occasionally, has a relationship with him, but like her home is with her host family, and it'll be until she goes to college.
So it's almost like you're a foster program.
No, because, good question. So the unique part about when we provide overnight hosting is it's voluntary. Just as when we encourage or we recruit volunteers to become host homes, parents are voluntarily allowing their child to be hosted. Rights are not stripped, so when DHS is involved, your child is no longer your child, like you don't have a legal say, right? Because they remove those rights from you, when they've removed your rights. In our program, that's not the case. It is totally up to you if you want your child hosted or not. Like we are just an option for you. So for this dad who, for this young girl who's been in our program for over 4 years, when I first met, her dad, he was going to a treatment program and we were introduced by a community partner. And I was like, this is just an option. If you have nowhere else for your kids to stay, we can connect you with a host family and host them for, the 30 days that you're going to be in treatment program. He was like, that would be great because I don't have anybody. So that's what we did the first time. And then realized down the road that it was in the best interest for this child to stay with the host family long-term. And the host family was willing. Some host families are like, no, I only can do 30 days, right? So it's really, again, kind of on, it's what the availability is of the volunteer, if they can do something like that. Most of the times our hosting are about a couple weeks, like that's the average, a couple weeks stay. And again, normally the age range is 0 to 5. Lincoln County has a high homeless youth population. I don't know, does I'm not too familiar with statistics in Douglas County. Does Douglas have a high homeless youth?
Oh, yes.
The number would be high homeless. I mean, I know it's over a couple hundred.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
We don't
absolutely.
have a place for unaccompanied minors, but there is something in progress.
Yeah. So, do you have a question, sorry?
No, there's just, I'm familiar with they've got in progress, there's 3 buildings by the high school that, I think he's at home is championing.
Yeah. So anyway, parents are guardians the entire time. Mom is done with, her stay at the hospital, gets home, like she gets little Johnny back.
Yeah.
A lot of times parents leave treatment early. They're like, I'm done, want my kids back. They're your kids. Like we don't want to keep, like we're here as a buffer. And it's almost like if I was in a crisis situation and I needed someone to watch my kids, I can think of over 20 people to call, over 20 people. Right? I have no, it's going to take me a really long time to get to, like, I have nobody else to call. The families that we work with, they have 0 people to call. And that's why they called us, because we are truly, think about it, last resort. When we meet our clients initially, like we have no past relationship and we share our services and they're saying, yes, I need my child hosted. You have to be at a certain point to agree to really a stranger to host your child. I could rave about all of our volunteers. They're safe. They're amazing. I don't know them,
Yeah.
And so that's our goal, is we're really trying to mitigate this social isolation and connect them in the community. And so really all of our volunteers, we're really trying to fill that role of their tribe, their community, because they don't have anybody who are safe and healthy.
So you have volunteers have to go through a background check.
Yep.
And so that at least gives the parent assurance that these people have been properly vetted.
It does. Yeah, it does. We are not as extensive as if you were being a foster parent through the state of Oregon, but we very closely follow their guidelines. So if you were to be a host family, which is the highest level of vetting, background check, Oregon background check, federal background check, fingerprinting, DMV check, in-person interview with you, and if you have a partner, both have to be on board. Like a partner can't say, oh, I want to host, and the other partner like not wanting to host. Like you have to be on board because it's a dual thing. Home check. So we go through our processes, references, training, and then again, I would say that's where it's really important. I love when we get to plan a hosting, because then client and volunteer can meet beforehand and build a relationship. That's where I say we're not an emergency program. I don't necessarily like to set up a hosting one day, because then a relationship isn't built beforehand, but we can do it and we have done it and it fills a need. But it's really beautiful when we receive a referral. We know a dad is going to treatment for 30 or 90 days. he can meet this host family, they can potentially visit their home. Kid can meet the host family and see where he's gonna be staying for 3 months. And then maybe even do some trial, like, hey, come, you spend the night for the weekend and then go back with dad. So that's like ideal. Obviously, it doesn't always happen that way, right? But the goal is that this relationship is built. So yes, you host child while dad's in treatment for 90 days. And then it's not like, okay, see you, never again. No, the goal is that you're in this family's life. You're supporting this dad. He may relapse. And you want to be the person he calls. Say, hey, I'm not doing good. Can you watch little Billy? Like, this is a bad weekend for me. So that's the goal, is that they are connected. Any other questions regarding hosting, overnight hosting?
With regard to the senior, having been a caregiver,
Yeah,
and we relocated, I was very interested in reaching out to DHS and, these, elderly people, not only, I mean, they have a fabulous training program, you know, continuing education. But the gap I found was between the services that DHS provides, you know, what we're supposed to provide, and then advocacy.
Hmm.
There doesn't seem to be, so that, they have a connection now with you as an advocacy
yes,
component.
that's the professionally supported piece.
But, you know, these people that, I cared for were at or below the poverty level.
Mhm.
And a lot of them didn't know the
Yeah.
resources that they could avail themselves to, and that's where the advocacy part came in.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And that's the beautiful part about it, because a lot of our volunteers, wherever they come from, they may not know much about poverty or homelessness, but have a heart, right? Like, I love babies. I love toddlers. So what, they shouldn't watch it? No, but that's where we support them with our training. And we are always the sounding board. We do check-ins. We're there to help refer this client to different resources and then educate our volunteer. Like, here's the different programs. This is how self-sufficiency runs. Just to clarify too, because sometimes when I talk about Hearts for Seniors and Safe Families, they're very similar in some ways, but like, we do not host seniors. So just, you know, you mentioned seniors, we do not host seniors. We haven't gone there yet. I will say this because it's just my lifestyle. I am currently hosting a senior, but it's just, we do not do that. But that's how my family is. So, but yeah, that's why it's important. To have our staff are very involved. It's not like we connect client and volunteer and then we're out. Like, we are involved, we do check-ins, case notes, etc. So
I wonder, I heard you say Safe provides families with the training they need to be a good host, a successful host. What are other supplemental resources that they provide families to help them succeed in fostering?
yeah, you're talking about like client families. Yeah. Well, that's where we rely heavily on our community. So Safe Families doesn't typically offer like parenting classes. We have a few like specific training tools that we go through with our parents, but that's where we are collaborating with the community and partnering with drug and alcohol, Samaritan, and I'm just using like Lincoln County, Samaritan Health, where they offer weekly parenting classes. We're a part of community groups. I was just a part of a DHS meeting and they're like, hey, our new parenting classes are starting this Tuesday and Thursday. So it's like, now we're referring that to all of our families who need those tools and skills. So it's a lot of collaboration because we know our wheelhouse and our capacity. It's not doing weekly family classes, but that's where we refer out because we want to build their tribe. They shouldn't just be Safe Families investing, pouring into them. And so it's collaboration.
Yeah, so part of the plan might be anger management as far as, I think, OPEC class and
Yeah.
and their parenting classes. And then the relational support that the community members, the volunteers provide is like, hey, did you make it to that class?
Or let's go
Do you need a
together.
ride? Yeah,
Yeah.
can I sit with
Do you
you
need
in
a
that
ride?
class? Because people
Mhm.
need that relational support sometimes to take that next scary step.
Yep.
Whether it's making a budget, that could be terrifying. So
Yeah.
Did you work with Adapt?
On the other hand, what kind of resources is our company do provide for hosts?
Yeah, well, each community has ongoing training, like most of the time, even free trainings that are offered. And so we encourage, especially for in Lincoln County, like all of my volunteers are on an email thread. Any free training that comes across my email that I'm encouraging my staff to go to, we send it to our volunteers, like attend this training. It's not a one and done. Oh, you've gone through your host family training, you're good. It's continual, right? Like that's how we grow as people. And so we're always encouraging our host families, and I would say all volunteers, to be engaged. In Jackson County, we have volunteer, I always forget the name, and it's the simplest thing ever. Almost like volunteer nights, once a month or every other week. And so just this last month, they talked about trauma informed. So they're always bringing in someone new and just refreshing, sharpening our tools in our tool belt, because it's needed with the people that we work with.
Yeah, so here, one thing that we'll be referring to is the TBRI conference that happened in the last 2 years that not a lot of people know about. So there should be one this summer, hosted at New Roseburg Church. So that's if you want one weekend, come and learn a lot. That's a great one. You walk away there with a lot of tangible tools. We hope to start a support group at some point in time. Hopefully, we're thinking this month. It's looking way more like next month as we're just, seeing the reality of everything, learning and growing. And I'm learning all this stuff. Marissa's here teaching me a bunch today. So we do hope to not only resource those out, like, hey, there's a great class. I think Farah just taught at Garden Valley Church, so that have been like, hey, there's a parenting class at a church down the road, go check that out. Or wherever we find it, we're gonna be just letting people know about those as we are informed.
I saw your hand 3 times. I wasn't neglecting you, Kathy.
Yako, the Family Development Center here, and you're connected with them because I know in the past anyway, they've had training for parents, and they also rely on volunteers for their relief nursery, which I think they're still operating on them. So that probably be a good connection if you haven't made it. And the other thought I had when you were talking about host families is, I'm gonna forget the name of it. It's families who host a foreign student.
Yeah,
For a
yeah,
change
that's
student program.
AFS, yeah.
Because that seems like kind of a right population.
It is,
Since they were
totally is.
willing to open their
Wow, yeah.
homes
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, and those are the groups, I'll say this, I've presented at our AFS group in Lincoln County. But a lot of times it's best, like how we came here, I think it was Elaine, you reached out to Lola and it invited us to come. And so we always do cold emails, calls, like, hey, can I speak at your group? What's great too is like, hey, I know someone from AFS, like, here's their contact information. So there is that warm handoff instead of it being like some Safe Families program. So if you know of a civic group, community group, church, someone in a school, like, we are always looking for those key contacts, because that is how we get our in and present. So if anyone pops it, in your head or is in your circle group, please connect them with Yaku, because that's who, that's like the open door. Again, like, it's always, we can always call and we do, but it's best when it's like, hey, meet Marissa or Yaku with Safe Families. They have a great program. They support youth and families. So, but it is totally a gold mine with the exchange program. Yeah. So that's hosting. Hosting is one of our services we offer. I will say this, since 2022, our hosting numbers across the state have actually gotten lower, and not just that we still do hostings, but the need isn't as, there just isn't as high of a need anymore. And there might be because, like, we are offering through Safe Families more preventative services because we've expanded in some other ways. When Safe Families first launched, all we were ever doing was overnight hosting. That's it. And then over the years, we've expanded into a few other services. So, which are more preventative than hosting. So we just don't do as many. I used to do anywhere between 5 and 10 new hostings a month. Now my brain couldn't even wrap around doing that many because of the other services we offer. So the other service that is probably the most popular is respite childcare. And really what that is is respite childcare. You are providing pockets of respite, typically for a single parent, maybe a couple times a month. It is, and we have to be very clear when we're presenting with community partners that we do not provide childcare. It's respite childcare. So because we're volunteer driven, it's not a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, right? There might be some unique situations when parent has specific training, like, hey, I just need someone to watch my kid for 2 weeks. For some reason, he doesn't have normal childcare. We could work that out. But our respite childcare is mom has court, dad has a medical appointment, not ideal to bring your 2 toddlers and teenager, right? Or maybe they just need a self-care day. I met a mom, and she had 2 kids, and one was a baby and one was elementary age. She didn't have a break from her 2 kids for over 2 years. Like, she loves her kids to death. You need a break from your kids, right? And she didn't have anybody. She had nobody. And so that is the whole goal of our program, is to connect her with someone who can be a part of their lives, invest into them and give them a break.
So just a clarifying question, does the parent not need to be in crisis in order for them to get this respite care? They could be doing something like they want to go away for a conference for an academic reason, or is it?
The qualifiers are in crisis. So if they're isolated and in crisis, because we don't have the bandwidth, and wish that would be a great goal, but we just don't have the bandwidth to serve anyone.
Sure.
And we do receive those calls, and it's just hard because then they're taking a volunteer who really would need to support this family who's in crisis. So there are qualifiers. But our respite day hosting, that's a main support we offer. And it's really providing pockets of respite to give parent, and it can be 2-parent families. Typically it's for single parents who don't have someone in their life to help with respite childcare. And mainly the age is from 0 to 6.
I'm just wondering, it's a crisis situation and the child goes to stay overnight because they need somebody. But how does the child cope with that?
Yeah, normally they do wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, children are just so resilient anyway, and that's where meeting them ahead of the time, most parents know their kids very well. They're like, it's gonna be hard for little Timmy. Janie will have no problem. And so, sometimes with littles, I would say it's the hardest because they're like away from mommy and it's been the first time they're away from mom or dad. So it can be tricky. But that's why we really want to build that relationship beforehand. They meet the Townsend family. They build a relationship with them. They see, oh, they're mommy's friends. And then they see their older siblings like having a blast with the other kids. Most of the time, it's not an issue. And that's where I always like to, if we know a hosting is going to happen, more so for overnight hosting, leave some of the things at the host family's house and have it set up in the kids' room. So that when they come in, they see their stuff that's from home. And then depending on the hosting, we plan visitation. So if parents are around and let's say they're just homeless, like they don't want their kids sitting in the car with them. So they're going to stay with the Smith family until they find stable housing. We would be planning visits. They're seeing their parents. If dad's in treatment, that's not the case. So maybe we do FaceTiming or phone calls, things like that. So most of the time, not an issue. I would say it comes up with the littles and it's like, of course, like they're away from their mom. They're gonna miss their mom. So, and we just do our best. But thankfully, a lot of our host families have kids in the home. And so it's like, this is the best, So where they're like living on a farm or wherever. And then it's neat because that relationship can continue. Like, oh, they had a sleepover, and everything was okay. But they just had a sleepover with this family because this relationship was built. So very good question.
I see an astounding bridge that you created between DHS and CPS. The volunteerism is filling this extremely needed void.
Yeah.
And it's, not only for kids, but like I said, I've seen it with seniors doing caregiving. They need the community connection.
We do. I mean, we have to have it, like, that's, I mean, we think like lone wolf mentality, it's like, no, we need people, you need your tribe to survive, the skills and giftings of other people. And so that's what we are trying to encourage, you know, our single parents, because our main population is single parents. I don't know, I could for sure speak to most of our counties. It's their single parents, and that's why they need their community and connection. So for respite, for day hosting, you don't have to be a vetted host family because kids not staying overnight, right? But we sometimes would encourage you to become a vetted host family if you wanted to bring a child to your home. So you could watch a child in your home. If that was the case, we need to do a home check and do a deeper level of vetting. A lot of times volunteers do things in the community, you know, they go to the rec center, the park, different community spaces, and you could provide respite childcare and not bring the child home. So sometimes volunteers will watch children in clients' home. We really wouldn't recommend that if we really knew the home, that client well, and that the home environment was safe. Just because we're dealing with families who typically are in crisis. Sometimes they don't have a home, and then other times they're sharing a home. And so most of the time we encourage either watch the child at your home or out in the community. But it's really simple. You watch, hostings can be anywhere between an hour to all day, depending on the need of the day hosting. And again, it's truly respite. So it's just giving parent a break. Most of the time it's because parent needs to go to appointments and it's just not in the best interest to bring this kid all day long, right? So that's our second service. And then our third service we offer is mentorship. So we have a mentorship program for parents and a mentorship program for teens. Our parent program is called Mommy Daddy Mentorship. And it's really connecting a volunteer with a mom, dad, or both, or teenager, and they work on goals together. For a parent, typically it's like, okay, you need to find, you know, your goals are, you want to find a job, you're trying to find stable housing, let's fill out applications together, let's work on budgeting, let's go to NA together, like I'll go with you. You know, you're trying to stay clean and sober. Not always easy to go solo, right? So let's, again, work together, partner together. Or it's walk on the beach, get some coffee, go on a hike. A lot of times it's, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Sally, do you need anything? Like, I'll pick you up and we'll go together. And you're just doing errands. So again, it's not like you always have to go out of your way to support these parents. And we really encourage our volunteers, pull them into what you're already doing. You know, if you have 5 errands you're going to do, pick up your mommy, drive together, and chit chat in the car, get some coffee. And then maybe other times you meet, it's like, okay, we're going to work on your goals, or you help out with some light housekeeping. While mom is, you know, maybe you're helping folding the clothes while she's doing stuff with the baby or whatever. So it's just being a part of each other's lives. Sometimes we're mentoring teens, depending on their age, we don't always identify specific goals. We started our mentorship program for teens during COVID, and it was like, let's get them out of the home. Like, they need to get out of the home, and just, meet, you know, people safely. At that time, it was like meet people safely without getting sick, but it was just get kids out of the home and typically do something outside. And so a lot of times with our teens, it's like, they just need to get out of the home, stop looking at the screen, learn a skill. So like a lot of times our mentors will teach them how to work out. They'll go on walks together. Sometimes bring them over their home if they're vetted, teach them gardening or woodworking skills. I heavily encourage when I'm speaking, like if you have a skill, we could probably pair you with a teen who would love to learn your skill. We have a group of girls and they just love to sew and crochet. And so we've connected them with volunteers where they like sew and crochet together. You know, it's great. And they connect and they learn about each other. And even though there's this age gap, like there's this connection piece, right? So that's really what our mentorships look like. And again, the qualifiers are like, are they isolated? Are they experiencing some crisis situation for the teen? Their crisis situation might be like, they're doing really poorly in school for XYZ, having some behavioral issues, and don't have a healthy role model. So that's where we connect them with a community member. And again, it's just this is your person that you can turn to for support and to help. That the goal is, will be with you for a good portion of your life, because we need those people. And there's just not as many like big brother programs out there anymore. You know, there used to be, there's just not. And so that's why we started this program, to really mitigate that need. So overnight hosting, respite childcare, and mentorship. Within that, our Safe Families programs have expanded and offer skills groups. So in Lincoln County, Klamath County, we have a teen skills groups called Pizza and Skills. And other counties have like Mommy and Me groups to where volunteers can come. Maybe like you're just wanting to get your feelers out. Instead of like committing one-on-one, you could participate and impact as a group. Our Pizza and Skills group, they make homemade pizza. They learn a social emotional skill, and then they learn a life skill. In Lincoln County, we actually have a group going on today, and their physical skill is like the 101 basics of household tools, like how to use a drill, how to find a stub, basics of painting. You know, we all need to learn how to paint a room, a wall. You're gonna paint something in your life. So just the basics. Have a great time. So, and then, yeah, go for it.
So there's this transitional housing called Oxford Housing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yep. Mhm.
And there are two disqualifiers for house members are they can't have an arson charge and they can't have a sex charge. So I wonder with your volunteers, are there specific disqualifiers, or can they have like a previous drug charge, or can they have charges,
Yeah.
like a vehicle charge, but it can't be another one of the disqualifiers
Yep.
essentially.
Yeah, so because they also, so they do a state back, like their, the background check is through the Department of Education. So like what all teachers have to, so that's our background check. They do that every 5 years. The federal disqualifier is like, you cannot be a sex offender. Certain drug charges, so it gets flagged. So there's kind of a process for that. It depends on how many years. For us, if it's, under, let me word this right. If it's, under 5 years of their drug charge, whatever, they probably won't be able, depending on what it is. You know, there's a lot of different levels. They probably won't be able to volunteer. So if it's under 5 years, if it's over 5 years, there's a higher chance they can volunteer. Now, the background check may just go, nope, they cannot. You know, we have no say. Doesn't matter how great your references are, how long you've been clean and sober, that background check could come back and say they cannot work one-on-one with minors. So does that kind of answer your question?
It does, yeah.
So how do we get in touch here in Douglas County?
Yeah, so Yaku's information should be on most all of your forms.
Okay. On
We
the
also have
pamphlets.
ways you can get involved. So little cards you can fill out with your contact information. And again, if you're a part of a church, another civic group, connected on a school board, and you're like, hey, you need to come and share here, please reach out to us, because we speak at all community groups, because we want to spread the word, how people can refer to us. And I think you asked that question earlier. How do you refer? You just call Yaku. We're working on hiring a coordinator for Douglas County. So we have an open position. So if you know anyone who has a heart to serve youth and families, we're looking to hire a coordinator, full-time position. So they'd be employee of Hearts of the Mission, but they'd work here in Douglas County and oversee our Safe Families program here. And you can either contact Yaku, or if you go to our Hearts with a Mission webpage, you just click the "We're hiring" button, and there's the job description there. But if you know of a family, you can have them reach out to Yaku.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, all of our information is here, but if you would like to fill out and get more, and get actually involved, whether it's becoming a host family, providing respite childcare, or mentoring, which is honestly like the most fun ever. Providing respite childcare is so fun too, but, yeah, that's.
Yeah, on this, the top right one says subscribe to that tangible needs list. If you're interested in getting an email, just about like the tangible needs, like, oh, this person we've got a young mom moving. She needs the dining room table, and you're like, well, I got an extra one in the garage or storage. You can check that box or more. And like What did I give you? I give you a note? And I can take that, I'll pick that up before I leave,
So great.
you guys get up, you can put about cookies and I'll grab a cookie and I'll.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes.
Are you,
And your cards, we have your
Oh,
cards
yeah.
too. Yeah,
are you already connected with the ESB and the local school district here?
so I would say with some schools, they
Yeah.
have, a lot of the schools have our information. I think it takes time to cultivate relationship to where they're like, oh, refer to Safe Families. You know, so in Lincoln County and other counties, it's taken a long time to build that relationship where they're like, oh, remember, because there's a lot of programs out there. And, you know, and then it's hard to just do that step of referring. So a lot of times we work very closely with McKinney-Vento advocates because they're working specifically with our homeless youth and families.
And your sources of funding, besides, donations.
Yeah,
Private donations, grants.
grants, yep, we do a lot of, our directors, coordinators do a lot of grant writing. We have partnership, we ended up our partnership with the state, Oregon Child Welfare, I should say, a year and a half ago. And so we're working on another partnership with self-sufficiency. But yeah, our funding streams come from grant, federal, state contracts, though we're always looking for local donors because we know that's coming in every month. You know, a grant's in, you know, sometimes it's one and done, or you may not get it again. And then with even just different changes, certain funding streams could be no longer available. So we get them from all the different streams, but we're always encouraging people to donate monthly to support your local youth and families. That's really what it is.
There's a March 15th informational, gonna maybe be at our office, or if there's enough people, it might be hosted at New Roseburg Church. So if you're interested in sitting down and hearing a presentation with slideshows and another, you know, hearing more of this, you're welcome to join. It'll be followed by training. So if you're like, I want to serve, that sounds so fun, then you can stay longer. So lunch will be provided. But yeah.
Sweet.
Does anybody also want a business card? I know my contact's on some of those
Your
things.
card, yeah, your contact is on one of them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anybody
I'll
want?
take it this time.
Any other questions? Really great questions.
I wonder how, because it's faith-based, how does that intersect with, potentially queer and transgender youth?
Yeah.
And where do you find those obligations?
Yeah,
And those resolutions in working with that population?
good, very good question. So the foundation, just to clarify too, the foundation of our organization is faith-based. You don't have to be faith-based to volunteer or receive services. Uniquely with Safe Families and our founder, like that was their passion just to launch these organizations. But there's no discrimination on what you believe, or how you identify. And the beautiful part about our program, like I said, we're volunteer driven. So we receive referrals for LGBTQ plus community all the time. And so when we have volunteers who want to mentor, you know, a queer youth, like that's who we care, because it's really important. And I didn't go too much into this, like matching, especially with our mentorship. You want them to have some similarities, like that's important. And so that's what we really look at when we have our like youth on our wait list. We'll go, okay, these are our volunteers. Who's the best fit? So that's how we match with overnight hosting. Doesn't happen so much with day hosting because it's really littles. We provide respite childcare for littles, but then with mentorship. And so it's really how we match which host families will take in youth or young adults in the queer community. You know, so that's what we look at. And then everybody is receive the same training. But it's the availability and comfortability of volunteer. So, yeah. There really hasn't been, I'm trying to think. If there's been any, yeah, that's just the beautiful part about, I was just trying to think if there was any like hiccups or issues that we've had, but it's just, that's the beautiful part about our program is if we have the available volunteer, you match them. And that's where we have to say no sometimes because we don't have volunteers. And that's the struggle we've had in Douglas County is we really are needing to put a pause on receiving referrals so we can invest time in building our pool of volunteers. So then when we receive those referrals, for a dad or mom or a teen who needs mentorship, we can say, yeah, we have mentors. But, so that's the growth piece that we're working on right now here in Douglas County. Does that answer? Yeah, yeah. Very, very good question.
Could you tell me again where this, March 15th meeting's gonna be at?
You might wanna call me or text me. I have a registration form that I can
Okay.
send you, and you fill it out and then we'll email everybody once we solidify
I'm
the
gonna
date.
announce this to all this at my church.
Oh,
And part of the reason I came is, I'm going to talk to them about donating.
Great.
I'm kind of in charge of picking in the community who we donate to, so.
Cool.
which church do you attend?
Unity of Roseburg.
Okay.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Have you connected with the community resources at Umpqua?
I might not have. I might have talked to somebody there yet, but I might not have. That might be a good.
What was the question?
Segue, I asked if he had spoke with the community resources instructor at UCC, so that class in particular, its weekly focus is on a different community partner.
Sweet.
And so they'll have somebody from like Upward Disability, they'll have somebody from ADAPT, they'll have somebody from some kind of
Right.
human service related community partner come and present to the class, and the class is then assigned, to just basically report what they learned and how it's valuable to their potential human service career. And that would be a really good.
Yeah,
I'll just connect you with the instructor.
Absolutely.
thank you. That would be great. Our office space, which is just so neat, I know our time is up, is that the Sunset Apartments, which in Douglas County is the only Safe Families chapter where they're a part of a low-income housing apartment unit, which is just such a unique and special partnership. So we're really hoping for that to continue to grow.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so very much. This
Thank
is
you
so
for having us.
informative and so
Yeah,
fascinating and fabulous to know you exist.
Thank you.
yep,
So,
Yeah, and it-
thank you.
thank you. Have a great rest of your day. You're good, you're good.
Okay.
And you can always email Yakut, no, I'm just kidding. You can email, I don't think my number is on any of that, so you will be emailing Yakut.
Yes,
But if
yes.
questions come up and interest to get involved in any way, just please let us know, so.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
For the tangible needs list, if we want to help with that,
Mhm.
where do we take the stuff?
You fill that out and give it to me and I'll update it in our email system and then you'll get the email and whatever needs you have, like we just had a young mom move. I found a point person at the church that young lady was attending
Okay.
and directed everything to her, cause I was like, I don't have the capacity to juggle, and that's what I
Yeah.
love about Safe Families. They pay me to help facilitate and organize all these wonderful opportunities, and my wife and I on our own time get to serve the clients, as volunteers, so I love that we have that balance.
Sweet.
It could potentially be, you drop it off at our office, you drop it off at the client's home,
Okay.
or you drop it off at, like Yaku said, the point person, so we would just say, hey, thank you, a lot of times, we're looking for a bike, this teen needs a bike so we can go to work, drop it off at our office, he'll be at our office, or it's mom needs some meals, a couple more meals, she just came home with her baby, we'll have you go to her house and drop it off, and at that level, if you're just providing tangible needs, Yaku mentioned this earlier, we call it resource friend. You don't need to be vetted. We may have you sign a confidentiality form. But that's the easiest way you can get involved, just helping out and providing tangible needs, which is fun too. And it gets your feet wet to maybe then mentor, provide respite hosting.
Now, you don't have to have a background check to work with seniors, all right?
You do, but not as extensive.
Okay.
Oh, it is so easy. So I'm just learning about this, because we just launched in Lincoln County. You can vet a volunteer for Hearts for Seniors, really practically in almost one day. The training is a little bit more simpler. You're not dealing with children. So it's a process when you are working with families, but worth it because they need you in their life. So do our seniors. It's just simpler. So we haven't launched yet in Douglas County, but the goal is to launch Hearts for Seniors here. So we for sure will let you know when it's a go.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Go for
And
it.
you can still keep talking while we break down and we have cookies and stuff.
I wonder if there was a Hearts for Seniors tag in Levitate, that if people are interested, they can say,